How's it going? Welcome back to the channel, guys. In today's video, we are going to be doing the full review of the brand new iPad 10th generation 2022. Now, obviously it isn't brand new, but I just got it from Apple's website, for Christmas, and I'm basically going to be doing a full review of it now. I think the first thing to note about this iPad 10th generation is that the design is honestly really good. It's very familiar from previous iPad generations, and I can't really show it because it's in this OtterBox case that I got that is really hard to take off. But what I will say about this design is that it's very familiar to the boxy design of the newest iPhones, as well as the iPad Pros and other iPad generations. So that's a very good thing about this iPad 10th generation. Overall, it feels very sturdy. Obviously, I've seen some bend tests that if you sit on it or anything like that, or if you try to bend it a lot, it won't do so well. But yeah, luckily I did get this case from OtterBox. And the nice thing is that I also got the Apple Pencil, and you could just put it up right there. So, but let's just look around to what we've got around here. So we've got our speakers that are to note. So we've got two upper speakers and two bottom speakers. So we have 4 speakers in total. We also, it's hidden here, but we have gotten the 12 megapixel camera right there. And then we have the Apple logo and it says iPad down there. Another thing to note is that we have Touch ID on the side with the power button, which is honestly really nice because when you have your hands laying like this, then you can easily lock and unlock it like so. So as you can see, it's a very fast unlock process, not similar to like something like the Touch ID on like an old iPhone, which is more just like a home button right here. This is on the power button, so it would almost be like if this was on the iPhone, it would be up here, but it isn't. So and on an iPad, I think it's much better because you have now even borders, but then you also have Touch ID, so it's like the best of both worlds. So yeah, overall, I'm really happy with this design. But another thing I want to talk about is this display. So let's just go to full brightness on this display here, and you can see it's very bright. Now, obviously, I don't have it to the, to the highest exposure or anything. I'm trying to keep it well exposed for you guys, but what I will say is that it is very bright. It's basically just as bright as something like the iPad Pros or the iPad Air, for example. This is a very bright screen. Now, it is LCD, but what I will say is that it's extremely sharp. So it is a Retina panel, and you can definitely tell because you really cannot see any pixels at all. So very impressive there. Like I was talking about before, we have even corners, which is another really nice thing. And it's such a big display, and honestly, I really like the size of this display. It's not too big, it's not too small, it's just honestly perfect. It's not like also very heavy either. I didn't really talk about that with the design, but that is something definitely to note. One thing I could complain about is that it's only a 60 hertz refresh rate. However, this 60 hertz refresh rate, if you can't tell by the video, is very smooth. You can see there's no stuttering, there's no problems at all, and that actually gets us into a perfect segue to the performance and the OS. So this is on the latest iPad OS 17, and as well as having the A14 Bionic chip. We also have 4 gigabytes of RAM on this, as well as 64 gigabytes of storage, which in my opinion is kind of mediocre in terms of the storage. The RAM is actually really good, so let's just start with that. Going into any apps, closing out of them, and then going back into them, it will stay in the RAM, so that's really good. So I would say it's comparable to something like any of the previous generation iPhones from like last year or maybe the year before. Like I said, it does have the A14 Bionic chip, and as a result, yeah, performance is very impressive. Any game basically will run at ultra settings, so whether that's Call of Duty Mobile, Bullet Force, anything like that that you are thinking of playing, it will 100% play. Now, if you're going into something like Genshin Impact or something like that, I don't think it would get the full 60 FPS. I don't really play that game, but what I will say is that those sort of games might not be able to do a full 60 FPS, but it will definitely do at least close to that. Now, let's talk about that storage. So the 64 gigabytes of storage is definitely not great. Now, I have installed most of my apps that I use, and overall it's been doing okay. I have about 20 to 30 gigabytes left, and so that's not really a problem. However, I know if I'm using this for any kind of projects or any kind of large files, if I want to send music or anything like that, then it'll definitely start to become a problem. Or if I want to install heavy games. So let's just say I wanted to install something like Genshin Impact. It's several gigabytes, and it'll take up a lot of that 64 gigabytes. So yeah, I would say that 64 gigabytes definitely isn't acceptable in 2024. However, that is just one minor complaint that I really have. I mean, obviously, to a lot of people will be a major complaint, but so far I have really no issues with the storage just because I don't use too many apps or put too many files on here where it's going to be a problem in terms of overusing the 64 gigabytes of storage. However, I could see if someone is sending large files, you know, in the future or something like that, then yeah, that will definitely possibly become a problem. And if you guys want to update, you know, stay updated about my iPad 10th generation, make sure you guys subscribe because I will be doing a lot of videos on this. And I'm going to be giving you my thoughts every few months, that's for sure. Now, if you notice on the back here, and we were kind of talking about recording, is that we have a 12 megapixel camera on the back, as well as a microphone light right there. There's no LED flash. And then we have the same on the front, which actually is not up there like it would normally be. It's actually to the side right here. I don't know if you could see that, but I don't know if you could see that right there, but there is the camera. So let's talk about this front-facing camera first. Now, one thing to note that I've noticed about the iPad 10th generation is that it is pretty noisy, especially on the front. However, I will say the detail is comparable to something like an iPhone XR, which in my opinion is actually pretty good for an iPad. And one really cool thing is that you can see it's in the center, so it doesn't look like you're looking like this or anything like that. It just looks like you're looking in the center. So that's a good thing. And then also the coolest thing is that you can do this ultra-wide mode right here, and wow, you can see how much space you get in here. It's basically like having a second camera almost, and then obviously you can go back, and this is just the kind of normal view, but I think the ultra-wide view is actually really, really impressive. Now, one thing that isn't on here is center stage, which basically, if you're moving somewhere, the camera will move along with you, and I think they totally could have added that, but honestly, I guess it's fine. I mean, yeah, usually I won't be really doing too many like calls or anything like that on this iPad anyway, so it's not really a problem. However, it is something that could be a problem for some of you guys. But yeah, this is a pretty good camera, and it's extremely, extremely wide. It kind of looks stupid in some points, but I definitely will say that it's not like mediocre or anything like that, like previous iPad generations. You know, before you had stuff like a 1.2 megapixel camera or stuff like that, but this is a full, just ultra wide camera with a good amount of detail, you know, a fair amount of noise, but it kind of also just depends in what condition you're in. On the back, you've gotten a 12 megapixel camera, and this can basically record up to 4K 60 FPS. And what I will say about this is that also it's very comparable to something like an iPhone XR, iPhone 11, difference being that there's no night mode at all, which is kind of unfortunate, but I guess when are you really going to be using night mode with an iPad camera? You know, I mean, if you're going to be recording something with an iPad, you definitely want it in good lighting. What I will say is that it is generally a pretty good a camera, especially for an iPad. So yeah, overall, cameras, yeah, they're fine. They're nothing to write home about. They're not going to replace your iPhone camera or anything like that, unless you have a pretty, you know, old iPhone, you know, something like an iPhone 7 or iPhone 8, then it technically could, but still, it's nothing that you really want to use on the daily basis. However, it will be decently reliable. It can record up to 4K 60 FPS, so it's really not all bad. And yeah, for an iPad for this price, it's very good. So now, I don't usually talk about this because a lot of iPhones and normal phones don't have this, but there is multitasking on this iPad. So let's just say I want to go to settings as an example, and then I want to open this up and I want to put something like YouTube on here. And we just put it to the side, and there we go. We have YouTube. So if we, well, also some apps don't really support it. So that's another thing, that not all the apps really support it. But what I will say, let's just go into like Clips or something like that. So Clips, okay, Clips also might not support it, which is unfortunate. Yeah, Splits View, it says up there, not supported. Even though it's not showing here, you can do basically like split screen or split view, and generally it does a pretty good job. I haven't used it too much. I'm not a huge like multitasker on iPads. I'm more like doing it on desktop computers because it's not full-fledged. It's a little bit messy still. Like a lot of apps still don't support the multitasking, which is unfortunate, like I was showing you right there. But I don't really use it too much, but I know a lot of people on iPads do. I just usually stick with just one screen and then go into another app. Obviously, this is going to be really good for like note taking, especially with the iPad Apple Pencil USB-C. And yeah, what I will say is that for most people, you know, for daily use, it really won't be that bad if you just don't use multitasking. So overall, how does this iPad do in terms of everything? So for the price of about $450, how is this? Is this worth it? Well, let's just start off with the very good things. So I would say the design is something that's really good, really timeless, and was inspired from the iPhone 4, and I'm glad they kept it that way. I also really like the display. I really like how colorful it is, how bright it is, and honestly, how seamless the corner-to-corner display is. I really like that. Obviously, it's a little bit thick borders, but I don't mind it at all. Also, it's an LCD panel, so you won't get like the most deepest blacks or anything, but so far it really hasn't been a problem for me. Now, another thing that's really good about it is the performance. The performance for this price is top notch. You really won't be able to find any other Android tablets really for this price that's as good of performance as this. The A14 Bionic chip with 4 gigabytes of RAM is basically absolutely perfect. We also got recently added support for the Apple Pencil, and that's a very good thing because before you had to use the old Lightning. This USB-C one is much, much better. However, there's a couple of not so good things. So, for example, the price is pretty similar to the newest iPad Air, and for the iPad Air, you're getting much better performance. So I would say a lot of people might want to consider that. But what I will say about this iPad is that overall, there's so many good things that outweigh the bad that honestly is definitely a pretty good recommendation. So yeah. Anyways, guys, that's basically it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Make sure to stay tuned for more videos, and peace out.